Um, so my name is Liza Krauser, and I am the AmeriCorps Program Coordinator here at Rural CAP of our State and National Resilient Alaska Youth Program. My presentation is going to take about an hour and a half, and we'll go over all kind of a background of AmeriCorps, of our program, and then some of the nitty-gritty rules and regulations of AmeriCorps, some of the paperwork involved, documentation, and also some ideas of programming that you can do as well. So we'll just get started. So first, let's kind of really back up and talk about, so what is AmeriCorps? And why do people join AmeriCorps? So AmeriCorps is a federal community service program that is taking place across our nation. And the motto of AmeriCorps is getting things done for America. And people join AmeriCorps for lots of different reasons, to help others, to build their career skills, to have adventure. There are benefits in terms of a stipend, education award, insurance, and childcare while you're in the program. And also it's just an opportunity to serve their community. So where did this come from? So in 1933, during the Depression, the CCC, or Civilian Conservation Corps, was formed to give people opportunity for work and also opportunity to connect with their community and to give back during a very challenging time. So these groups were formed, and they made national treasures such as the Hoover Dam and the Red Rocks Amphitheater that's located in Colorado. So that was kind of a seed of service in our country. Then in 1961, President Kennedy formed the Peace Corps, which brought Americans abroad to teach and to learn and to help empower communities abroad. In 1964, he also formed what's called the VISTA program, or Volunteers in Service to America. This was a very early iteration of AmeriCorps. It's a different kind of AmeriCorps that still exists today. And then in 1993, the Corporation for National and Community Service, which is that federal body that oversees AmeriCorps, was formed along with some other AmeriCorps programs, such as the NCCC and AmeriCorps State and National, which is, that last one is the type of program that we are under. And then in 2009, the Serve America Act was signed into legislation, and that really expanded AmeriCorps and put into place a lot of regulations and goals around community service. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So as I mentioned, the Corporation for National and Community Service is the federal agency that oversees AmeriCorps. And their goals are to improve lives, strengthen communities, and foster civic engagement through service and volunteering. There's lots of different ways to connect with volunteerism in America through the Corporation for National and Community Service. There's a group of programming called Senior Corps, a group of programming under Learn and Serve, and then there is AmeriCorps. So that Serve America Act that I mentioned before, that was signed into law in 2009, was signed by former President Barack Obama, and it really expanded community service, formal community service in America, with a goal of having 250,000 AmeriCorps members by 2017, and really honed in on the focuses on education, health, environment, veterans, and economic opportunity. I should mention as well, Gwen, if you have any questions, just feel free to jump in and ask them as I'm going along.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So AmeriCorps' goal is to really meet the critical needs of communities across America. And there's a wide variety of ways that these needs are met. AmeriCorps members are building trails in national parks across the U.S. They are putting in smoke detectors in low-income housing. They are working with veterans, working with youth, teaching, building homes, responding to disasters. There are fire crews of AmeriCorps members who are assisting with wildland fires. So really, AmeriCorps is this huge movement across America to mobilize citizens and to meet those critical needs. So who benefits from AmeriCorps? And the answer to that is that we all do. AmeriCorps members, they benefit from learning leadership and career skills. They earn money for college, and they also learn how to be active members of their community and to give back to their community. The nonprofits that sponsor and host AmeriCorps members gain reach and impact from having motivated, passionate people serving in their agency to either develop their program and also to develop that impact to the people who are being reached by their programming, the people they are serving. Communities benefit from having better schools, safer streets, more affordable housing, and then the people themselves who are accessing these services also have better access to tutoring, mentoring, health, housing, and other services that AmeriCorps members provide. So really, this program affects people from the member level, the service level, participant level, the organization level, the community level. It's really having a deep impact across our nation. And studies have shown that AmeriCorps members who serve a year of service are more connected to their communities, are more active and participate actively in their communities, and choose public service careers in high levels. So it really is transformational for AmeriCorps members who participate. Today, AmeriCorps has three main components. There is the AmeriCorps State and National Program, which is the type of program we are, which includes direct service, so working directly with the populations who are impacted by your agency, whether that's youth who are experiencing homelessness, people who are seeking health, youth who are seeking health careers, or youth in rural communities who are looking for safe spaces and positive activities. There's also AmeriCorps Vista, who work to expand the reach and impact of nonprofits through capacity building, so grant writing, looking at programming, that sort of thing. And then there's also another kind of AmeriCorps called NCCC, which is team-based, and they are doing a lot of work focused on disaster relief, education, more hands-on work in the lower 48. So, as I mentioned, our program is a state and national AmeriCorps program, which is actually the largest branch of AmeriCorps, with about 85,000 people serving as AmeriCorps state nationals across the nation each year. They are in about 1,840 organizations, and the people hosting these state nationals include nonprofits, schools, universities, public agencies, and tribes. So I've already talked about that there's a wide scope of AmeriCorps programs and types of projects out there. So what is it that really spans across all those projects and have those common goals? The goals of all AmeriCorps programs are to strengthen communities. So for those of you who are looking at the PowerPoint, here's a picture of some AmeriCorps members who are helping out at a language conference to encourage responsibility. Here's a picture of a couple of Raven and Birch members, which were a former part of our program. Formerly, our program was focused on environmental work. So those of you who might have been in touch with our program previously, we had a focus on environmental work through the Raven program. And then about 2 years ago, we kind of switched our focus to the Resilient Alaska Youth Programming, focused on positive youth development. So this is a picture of some members in Togiak who are beautifying a dumpster in their community, encouraging the community to keep their area beautiful. AmeriCorps also seeks to expand opportunities for community members. So here's a picture of a former AmeriCorps member who organized a first Saturday with artists, authors, and craftsmen so that the community could be connected to those artistic opportunities. And also AmeriCorps gets things done. So here is a picture of a recycling project in Togiak that AmeriCorps member organized, and they also did some beautification on trash receptacles around town. So now we're going to kind of look at AmeriCorps at a federal level and then bring it down to where we are at our level here at Rural Cap. So on a federal level, AmeriCorps is overseen by the Corporation for National and Community Service, or CNCS. And the corporation is the source of funding, of rules and regulations regarding AmeriCorps. And then at the state level, there's a state agency called Serve Alaska, which oversees all of the state and national programs in Alaska. So some regulations are state specific, and so they are our resource for how AmeriCorps will be conducted in Alaska in particular. And then finally, at our level is Rural Cap, the Rural Alaska Community Action Program. We are a grantee of CNCS and Serve Alaska, so we have a grant to carry out the Resilient Alaska Youth Program, which is also called the RAY program. This next slide includes the link to Serve Alaska. If any of you have any interest in learning more about the work that is being done here in Alaska, we have a state national program over at the Public Defender Agency, there's a state national program at the Salvation Army focused on working with people experiencing homelessness. So Serve Alaska has a statewide reach. But I believe that we have the largest program, state national program in Alaska, here at Rural CAP. So now I want to give you a little bit of a background of our programming here at Rural CAP, so that you get an idea of how the AmeriCorps program fits into our overall goals and mission. So Rural CAP is the Rural Alaska Community Action Program. So we are focused on empowering communities, and that is done through our early childhood programs. So we run Head Starts and early Head Starts in over 24 rural Alaskan communities. We also have a Parents as Teachers program, where local Rural CAP staff actually go into the homes to help teach parents skills to work with their kids. And then we also have a Child Development Center here in Anchorage. We also have a division called Weatherization, which goes into people's homes and help them prepare their houses for winter months. We have a focus on working with people experiencing homelessness. So we have a few housing places in Anchorage, including Homeward Bound, Carlick Manor, and also some programs for people to access affordable housing. And then finally, we have our Community Development Division, which is the division that I am part of as the AmeriCorps coordinator. And that includes our state and national programs. We also have a VISTA program here at Rural CAP, which has about 8 members, mostly serving in the Anchorage area. We also have the Resource Basket under this division, which provides assistance to and resources to youth programming across the state, etc. And as I mentioned, we have a few different kinds of AmeriCorps here at Rural CAP. Our program, my program, is the Resilient Alaska Youth Program, which is a state and national, and we have about 25 members serving marriages, and then 3 or 4 sites here in Anchorage who are also focused on youth, including Seeds of Change, Covenant House, the South Central Area Health Education Center. We also have a VISTA program, so those AmeriCorps who are focused on capacity building. We have about 8 of those members who are serving mostly in Anchorage. And then we also have an Elder Mentor program, and so this program is for people who are 55 and older who are low income, and it connects elders with youth in a tutoring relationship in the schools. So it's a way for elders to connect with kids and kids to connect with elders. And the elders also receive a small stipend each month, so it generates some income as well as providing that really important connection piece. So if that sounds like something that might be of interest to elders in your community, please just reach out to me and I'll connect you with the Rural CAP staff member who does that program. So our program in particular, the Resilient Alaska Youth Program, focuses on positive youth development activities designed to enhance their cultural connection and supportive relationships in order to grow participant resiliency to substance use and suicide risk factors. So basically, the goal of our program is to create safe spaces and positive activities so that youth can develop those protective factors, a connection to a positive adult, positive activities, so that they can make good choices, avoid substances, and have other ways of working through emotions so that they do not turn to suicide. So that is the goal of our program, is to really have those positive spaces and positive adults in order to make healthy choices. Here's a picture of some youth in Huslia who are putting on an anti-bullying skit during Thanksgiving. So now that we've kind of talked about the background of what AmeriCorps is and also our agency, let's get into the nitty-gritty of AmeriCorps rules and regulations. So first of all, how did we get to this point? So right now, we have hired on AmeriCorps members. We've partnered with host agencies to support those AmeriCorps members. So in order for a host site to be chosen, selected to host an AmeriCorps member, the host site has to complete an application and supporting materials. The host agency has to be a nonprofit. There has to be clear community-wide support for the position, which is why we ask for that letter of support so that it's not just one or two people who are in support of the program, but the whole community is on board. A site supervisor has agreed to provide solid support, encouragement, and coaching to the AmeriCorps member. And we've ensured that the project ideas are appropriate and in line with the goals of our program. In order for an AmeriCorps member to serve, they must be a U.S. citizen or an LPR or green card holder, lawful permanent resident. The applicant must disclose any potential criminal history and then pass 2 background checks, both a federal check and a local check, and be able to commit to their full term of service. So once they do the interview and pass those background checks, what are the requirements for the AmeriCorps member throughout their year? So the first step is to attend orientation. We just completed our week and a half of orientation with all the AmeriCorps members, and now they are back in their site communities and should be starting with you. The next step is to develop a work plan in conjunction with the site supervisors and myself, and to follow that work plan throughout the year. So that paperwork was given out at the training. So get with your AmeriCorps member to develop that work plan. AmeriCorps members must complete timesheets and reflection logs through Encore, which we'll go through later in this presentation. They must complete all other reporting requirements, which we'll go over in just a moment. Follow AmeriCorps policy, which includes avoiding prohibited activities. And they must complete a minimum number of hours within their service term. So for those who are doing an 11-month placement, which are most of our sites this year, then it's a minimum of 1,700 hours that have to be completed within the term. Additionally, the AmeriCorps member must meet formally at least once a week with the site supervisor. So this is a time that is set aside for the 2 of you to meet to talk over how things have been going and to make plans. The AmeriCorps member must communicate with me regularly, participate in weekly teleconferences, host an AmeriCorps site visit when I will come to visit your sites in your areas. Participate in 3 National Days of Service. So these National Days of Service are 9/11. So we actually did a service project during training. We created manuking or ice fishing sticks. We worked on cuff bucks and on making paracord bracelets to give out in the communities. And then also the AmeriCorps member will put on events for Martin Luther King Jr. Day and Global Youth Service Day. And as those approach, I'll be working with members to make their plan. And then at the end of the year, the AmeriCorps member must complete end of service program evaluations and exit forms. One requirement of AmeriCorps is that the member must pass background checks before they're able to work with kids or people over the age of 60. But fortunately, all of those background checks have been completed, and so now all of our members are cleared to work with those populations. So all of the members, they did an enrollment form already. They signed an agreement to participate, which is essentially their contract for their service year. They completed 2 background checks, both at the federal level and at the state level, and they were also checked through the National Sex Offender Registry. And they completed other hiring documents with the Rural CAF agency, including W-9s and direct deposit, etc. All right, so those are all the responsibilities of the AmeriCorps member. So now let's jump into the responsibilities of the site supervisors. So as a site supervisor, the first is to attend this orientation and turn in a document with some questions that just document and prove that you've attended the orientation, which I'll be sending out later along with the recording of this webinar. The site supervisor must assist the AmeriCorps member with developing a work plan. And this is just kind of a rough outline of the year and goals to meet throughout that year. The site supervisor must review and approve timesheets and reflection logs. And these are done, they're due every 2 weeks. Through the OnCore system. And then the site supervisor also must review and approve other reports, mainly the monthly reports and mid-year evaluations. As I just said, in the mid-year, halfway through the year of service, I will send out mid-year service evaluations. And there's one that's done by the AmeriCorps member themselves to review their own, to do a self-reflection. And there's another form that is conducted by the site supervisor. And there should be a time for both of you to check in on what was written there so that you can have open communication. And then I also, as the coordinator, complete a mid-year evaluation of the AmeriCorps member. Another responsibility of the site supervisor is to make sure that the AmeriCorps member follows all AmeriCorps policy, including avoiding prohibited activities, which we'll go over in just a moment. And also to meet formally with your AmeriCorps member at least once per week. Some of you are in very small offices where you will interact with your AmeriCorps member on a regular basis. But it's still really important to set time aside each week when you know so the AmeriCorps member knows that that they will have your full attention and be able to really talk through any challenges they might be experiencing or to plan activities going forward. I will be checking in with all of the site supervisors. The goal is at least once per month. In reality, it might be once every other month. But know that I am here and available. If you're experiencing any challenges, please give me a call or send me an email. Another role of the site supervisor is to provide the AmeriCorps member with training and guidance and get them connected with resources in your community. So that might be getting them connected with IGAP or other youth programming in the community, like a teen center or the clinic, so that they can partner with those resources. Another major responsibility of the site supervisor is to make sure that they have access to a computer, a phone, internet, and space to hold youth events. This can be challenging especially in small tribal councils, but it is very important that the member has access to a computer and internet in order to research activities and to do their mandatory reporting. And finally, the site supervisor should help the AmeriCorps member prepare for a site visit from myself. Is there any questions so far about what we've talked about?
I don't have any yet.
Okay, great, thank you. All right. So now we're going to talk about the code of conduct for AmeriCorps members. So this is getting into some of the regulations, the federal regulations involved with running a federal program. And the purpose of these regulations are to create a program of respect and positivity, and also to ensure that that federal funds are being safeguarded and used appropriately. And AmeriCorps is fortunate that it has a lot of support on both sides of the federal spectrum, or the political spectrum. So really making sure that these activities don't happen helps ensure that AmeriCorps can exist in the future. So it is very important. So the AmeriCorps Code of Conduct is, as an AmeriCorps member, they must demonstrate respect towards others, follow directions, direct concerns, problems, and suggestions to the appropriate program official, whether that is you as the site supervisor, me as the program coordinator, my supervisor, Eric Milliken, here at Rural Cap, or Serve Alaska as the state agency. And then to not engage in any activity that involves, that is prohibited. And for those of you who are looking at the slide, there's a list of prohibited activities that I'll go over in the future slides, so don't worry, we'll come back to that. At no time during their service year may the AmeriCorps member engage in any activity that is illegal under state or federal law, or engage in activities that pose a significant safety risk to others. All of this code of conduct and also the prohibited activities are all listed in the agreement to participate, the contract that the AmeriCorps member signs. So this holds them to those behaviors, and also can be a tool in the case if challenges arise during the service year with the AmeriCorps member, then we can also use that as a tool to correct behavior and also to work with the AmeriCorps member, and also potentially censure and ultimately exit from the program if after many opportunities are given for correction. So an additional part of the code of conduct is to avoid unauthorized tardiness, unauthorized absences, repeated use of inappropriate language at the job site. The AmeriCorps member must wear appropriate clothing to service assignments. That's really based on the host site's own expectations. Stealing or lying. Engaging in any activity that may physically or emotionally damage other members of the program or community. Possessing or using any illegal drugs during the term of service. Consuming alcohol during service activities. Being under the influence of alcohol or illegal drugs during service activities. Or failure to notify myself or the program officials of any criminal arrest or conviction that occurs during the term of service. If any of these things happen during the service term, the first step would be to check in with the AmeriCorps member and also to notify me, especially in the case of, well, in the case of any illegal activity, yes, please let me know as soon as possible. But if there starts being a challenge with tardiness or absences, the best thing to do is to start writing that down so you have a record and letting me know as soon as possible so that we can show a pattern of behavior, and also to reach out to the member to correct it early so that we don't wait until it's a really big issue. All right, so now we've gotten to the exciting part, which is going over prohibited activities. So as I mentioned before, these are very important because it is a federal program, that we avoid any of these activities or any appearance of these activities while serving AmeriCorps hours. But it's a very important distinction to make that while the member is not serving if they're on their own time, as a private individual, they have the right to exercise their freedoms as citizens of this country. But while they are counting AmeriCorps hours or wearing AmeriCorps logos, then these activities cannot be counted as AmeriCorps hours, and the logo should not be worn when participating in these activities. So what are we talking about? On the PowerPoint, there is a list of these prohibited activities. I've sent it out to all of you, and I'll send it again so that you can access these. But these activities include attempting to influence legislation, engaging or organizing protests or strikes, being involved in union organizing, or Comparing existing contracts for services or collective bargaining agreements, engaging in partisan political activities or other activities designed to influence the outcome of an election to federal office or the outcome of an election to a state or local public office. So any sort of partisan political activities cannot be part of AmeriCorps hours. Participating in or endorsing events or activities that are likely to include advocacy for or against political parties, political platforms, political candidates, proposed legislation, or elected officials. This next one is really important, which is engaging in religious instruction or providing instruction as part of a program that includes mandatory religious instruction or workshop. This one is really important. Again, an AmeriCorps member on their own time in after hours are free to engage in whatever religious worship or not that they choose to. But during AmeriCorps hours, it's very important that there is a distinct line between religious service and AmeriCorps hours. So sometimes in the rural areas, this can be sometimes challenging. For example, there might be a youth group at the church that is already meeting, and those are also the kids that you want to do a beading activity with. It's really important that there's a distinction of when the church youth group ends and when the AmeriCorps activity begins, so that there's no appearance of religious instruction associated with AmeriCorps hours. And if that finding that line is challenging, just call me and we can talk through and see problem solve the best way to really make that distinction, so that participants don't. The important thing is that the participants don't feel like they have to participate in the religious instruction in order to be part of the AmeriCorps programming. The AmeriCorps member cannot provide direct benefit to any for-profit organizations. So they can't go volunteer to do a shift down at the store to cover for someone who is out of town for a family emergency. They can do that on their own time, but not as AmeriCorps hours. Cannot provide direct benefit to a labor union, a political organization, any nonprofit organization that engage in advocacy activities, or the religious activities that we already talked about. AmeriCorps members also cannot provide abortion services or referrals for the receipt of such services. They cannot conduct a voter registration drive or carry out other activities that the corporation may prohibit in the future. Another important thing to note is that as a national community service program, AmeriCorps volunteers cannot displace employed workers or other volunteers. So the purpose of AmeriCorps is that community service is not to provide cheap labor to nonprofits. So AmeriCorps members cannot displace employed workers. So this is a long list of what you cannot do. But next we're going to talk about what is AmeriCorps hours. But first, before we move on from prohibited activities, a new regulation this year is that a list of these activities must be posted at your site, at your AmeriCorps site. So at training, all of the AmeriCorps members received signs that have the AmeriCorps logo, have my contact information, and also a list of the prohibited activities. So get with your AmeriCorps member and find a place in your office where you can post those signs. All right, so we've talked about what is not AmeriCorps hours. So let's talk about what is AmeriCorps hours. So timesheets are done through a program called AmeriCorps, which I will show you later in this presentation. But there are 3 categories of activities that can be counted as AmeriCorps hours. All of your AmeriCorps members received handbooks. They're thick binders that really go over the details of all this information, so that you can use that for a reference or call me if you have any questions. But those 3 main categories are direct service, member development, and fundraising. So direct service is that hands-on work that's directly with the people who are benefiting from your program. So at Covenant House, that would be youth experiencing homelessness. In the tribal councils, those would be the youth in the community and the elders and the adults who are all interacting with the programming. So most of the AmeriCorps hours should be that direct hands-on work. And direct service also can be the time spent planning for these activities, so doing research, you know, ordering supplies, putting the word out for the activity. Also, travel time to and from training. So when the AmeriCorps member came here to training, or if they travel to a circle training at Rural Cap later in the year, that would also go under direct service. Direct service is not any purely administrative work. So, for example, an AmeriCorps member, a state national member, cannot spend most of their time sitting at the front desk of the tribal council or tribal administrative office, signing people in and out or answering phones. That can be a very, very small part of their program, their hours, but oh, I take that back. It cannot be. The vast majority needs to be that direct work with youth that we talked about. And so direct service should be 80% of their time. AmeriCorps is intended to be a transformative experience for the AmeriCorps member. So 20% of their overall hours can be what is called member development. And member development is activities that are related to their service or to future professional goals. For some people, that is reading books about working with youth or suicide prevention or substance abuse prevention, or taking online courses about accounting or other things related to future goals. So those can be counted as member development. But as this next slide goes over, it should be something related to service or professional goals, and not just general healthy activities and that would benefit the member, such as going to the gym or just reading fiction or other activities that just benefit the member personally, but not professionally. We're looking for member development is something that would benefit the member in their current service or future professional goals. And then another category for hours can be fundraising. And this is about 10% of their overall hours. An important distinction to make is that this fundraising must be for funds that directly benefit the AmeriCorps project. So this might be writing a grant proposal for a Rural Cap Foundation grant so that they can do an educational moose hunt, or putting on a bake sale to raise money for meeting supplies, so that sort of thing, or requesting donations from local businesses so that they have door prizes to give out at their activities. What cannot be counted as AmeriCorps hours is fundraising that goes towards the general agency as a whole. So let's say that the tribal administration puts on a bingo night to raise money for IGAP. That might not be something that happens, but let's just say that it does. Then the AmeriCorps member wouldn't be able to volunteer for that and count it as AmeriCorps hours, because that is going towards a different part of the tribal administration or the overall agency, and not the AmeriCorps project in particular. And again, if there's any question about that, or you're unsure if something can count as AmeriCorps hours or not, just give me a call or shoot me an email. That is what I'm here for. All right. So what can count as AmeriCorps hours? These can be all of the youth activities that we talked about during your interview process. Beading activities, drumming, putting on community events, putting on potlatches, inviting elders in to teach the kids about subsistence, putting on an anti-tobacco dance for the community. Also the personal and professional development, the member development hours that we talked about. Something to note, though, is that these hours should be conducted in a public space. So at the tribal office, at the nonprofit agency where you serve, they should not be conducted from home. And the purpose of that is to make sure that, that the public has access to the AmeriCorps member, has equal access to the AmeriCorps member. The AmeriCorps member needs to have regular office hours, and it's entirely possible that they'll be serving outside of the normal Monday through Friday 8 to 5 hours, if that is what is needed in order to be available for the kids. So putting on activities in the evening or on the weekends. And that schedule is really dependent on your agency and your needs from the AmeriCorps member. Many of your communities do subsistence, and your AmeriCorps members do subsistence activities, and these can actually be part of the AmeriCorps hours. a lot of, as I mentioned previously, the goal of our program is to connect youth with their cultural identity and with positive adults in their community. So if your AmeriCorps member is going out to cut fish or to pick berries, encourage them to bring those kids along with them to teach them about those processes, or to pick berries or cut fish for elders in the community, or go on a walk with the kids to talk about all of the different traditional plants, or the plants in the area and traditional uses for those plants. And as I mentioned, those of you who are looking at the slides, I am in my office Monday through Friday, generally about 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And my phone number is listed as well. So if you have any questions, just give me a call or shoot me an email. All right, so what is the commitment that we're asking from the AmeriCorps members? We've signed agreements to participate and also memorandums of agreement with your agencies, outlining these expectations. So the AmeriCorps member is expected to serve full-time. So that is about 40 hours per week, with some time for vacation and sick time as well. For an 11-month placement, the AmeriCorps member must do a minimum of 1,720 hours, and a 9-month placement, a minimum of 1,220 hours. It can be easy to get behind on hours, especially if in the beginning. So it's very important to keep an eye on your AmeriCorps member to ensure that they are doing those 40 hours a week, so that it doesn't pile up at the end of the year and we're stuck trying to get a lot of hours done in a short amount of time. But in that vein, AmeriCorps members also tend to under-report their hours. So any time spent planning, spent partnering, spent ordering supplies, traveling to activities, traveling to training, all of those can count as AmeriCorps hours. If an AmeriCorps member spends the week planning activity, announces it to the community, and then no one shows up, even though no one has come, they should still count all of the hours preparing for that activity as hours. If we notice that there's a pattern of less than full-time service, I'll check in with the AmeriCorps member, and if necessary, send a letter just encouraging them to keep an eye on their hours. And then if it doesn't improve, there's potential that they can be suspended from the program or ultimately exited. So it is very important that those hours be maintained. But before any of that action would be taken, there would be communication with the AmeriCorps member and with you. So what are the benefits of being an AmeriCorps member? This year, we just got a grant. We were awarded a grant from the state to do marijuana prevention work. And so we were able to increase our living allowances. So the AmeriCorps members receive $1,725 per month. And that is paid twice a month on the 16th and the last day of the month. AmeriCorps members also receive training, so we just went through that week and a half of training down here. They also receive an education award at the end of their year if they successfully complete the year. For a full-time member, 11-month member, that's about $6,000. A 9-month term, it's about $4,000. And this is money that can be put towards existing student loans or to future educational expenses. AmeriCorps members also have access to health care while they're in the program, child care, and they also get to interact and learn from people around Alaska. So when are the pay periods? So the pay days are the 15th and the last day of each month. It looks like I didn't update this slide, but it's about $826 per every 2 weeks, minus taxes. The AmeriCorps member fills out their timesheet and does reflection logs, and then submit them to you as site supervisors, and then you approve them. And we must have those completed in order to pay the AmeriCorps member. So that it's very important to be timely. Another benefit of participating in the State and National Resilient Alaska Youth Program is that AmeriCorps members have access to free and confidential counseling. It's called the Member Assistance Program. So there's a phone number on this slide that the AmeriCorps member can call to have 24/7 access to master's level counselors to talk about anything in their lives. That can be personal relationships, family issues, stress from their service, anxiety, depression, really anything that they're going through. It can be very beneficial to have a third party to talk to. And this is fully confidential. We don't know who's accessing the services. Site supervisors do not know. It's just a resource for the AmeriCorps member. So I highly encourage you to highlight this resource to your AmeriCorps member if they are experiencing a challenge in their lives. All right, so looking forward in the rest of the year, what is going to be happening? So in the summertime, I will be conducting site visits with as many sites as I can. Unfortunately, I won't be able to come to all 25, but I will make every effort to come to as many as I can. We here at Rural Cap, we have training opportunities such as circle peace trainings. So we'll forward along any of those opportunities that come to you as site supervisors and to the AmeriCorps member. And we really encourage AmeriCorps members to take advantage of this year and to make it a transformative experience for themselves and their communities. So in terms of site visits, what will that look like? So for local agencies, that might just be an afternoon where I come over and see the workspace and check in with the AmeriCorps member and with the site supervisor, and hopefully get to witness a youth activity. In rural areas, the site visits are usually 2 or 3 days long, And the purpose, again, is just a check-in to see the space and to meet with the site supervisor. I will give lots of notice before the site visit happens. And if there is any time that would be a good time to visit your community, if there's a festival, if there's a youth activity that happens, keep that in mind. Let me know so that I can prioritize and participate with those. And again, the purpose of these visits are not to catch anyone or to be scary, but just as a way to develop our relationship and provide support. The AmeriCorps member and site supervisor also, we ask that you help set up a place to stay, especially in the smaller rural areas, and provide a ride from the airport. All right. Some of your agencies might not hold a regular 8 hours a day, 5 days a week schedule to be able to fill those 40 hours a week. If that's the case, the AmeriCorps member can potentially serve with other community agencies as long as they're nonprofits. Like spend some time at the school is a great partnership to have. To participate at the Head Starts or the city offices, etc. So if you're finding that there's not an opportunity to do those 40 hours at your site, let's problem solve together to find other solutions. All right, so 11 months is a long time. So it's likely that the AmeriCorps member will need some time off throughout that year. If it's 1 to 3 days, the AmeriCorps member can get a verbal okay from you as a site supervisor and myself as the coordinator. If it's more than 3 days, then there is a leave request form that must be approved first by you as a site supervisor and then signed by me as the coordinator. And the purpose of this is so that I can check in and see what the progress of hours are and talk about options if it's going to be a long break. One option that we have is a suspension, which is basically at least a 1 pay period, which stops the clock on the service year, so that a person can have 2 weeks to, if it's a health emergency, a family emergency, just needing a break, and then we would add those weeks to the end of the service. So that's one option in the case of an emergency. Some AmeriCorps members and their sites allow their AmeriCorps members to have a part-time job. That is acceptable as long as the AmeriCorps position is the main focus. And there cannot be any double dipping. So if anything that is paid by another agency or another business cannot be counted as AmeriCorps hours. So if they have a part-time job that's 15 hours per week, then that would be in addition to the 40 hours of AmeriCorps service. So if your AmeriCorps member would like to have a job, just as always, check in with me, and they should check in with you as well. In the case of an emergency, the AmeriCorps member should let you know. As a site supervisor, let me know. The really important thing is to stay in contact. If we lose contact with an AmeriCorps member, there's a possibility that we can eventually place them on suspension and exit them from the program. So again, it's just really important to stay in contact. So a lot can change in a year, and there are certainly circumstances where AmeriCorps members cannot finish their service year. And there are some circumstances that have been outlined by CNCS that called compelling personal circumstances, where the AmeriCorps member might still be eligible for a partial education award, even if they have to leave early. And these include if your spouse or partner has been relocated, the illness or death of a loved one, or any major personal, medical, or health issues. So these, in order for a partial education award to be awarded, and these circumstances must be well documented. So as always, if these issues come up, get in contact with me so that we can talk about options. There is a grievance procedure that is outlined in the AmeriCorps manual and the agreement of participation. Sexual harassment is a violation of the AmeriCorps Code of Conduct. In the instances of sexual harassment, there is a form to be completed and also disciplinary action to be taken. So contact me, look in your manual if something happens. AmeriCorps members also have access to workman's comp. We have a new system where I, as the supervisor of our program, calls a medical professional with the AmeriCorps member to get that workman's comp process started. So if the AmeriCorps member is hurt on the job, please let me know as soon as possible so we can get that process started. Will the AmeriCorps member qualify for unemployment? This is not a job, so they do not qualify for unemployment. Another question we often get is, will participating in this program affect public assistance benefits? And the answer to that is it depends on the type of assistance and the case manager. So I can work with people one-on-one if they have any questions about that. And of course, all AmeriCorps sites must be alcohol and drug-free. All right, well, it looks like we have about 10 minutes left. So next, I'm going to go through some of the reporting requirements of the AmeriCorps program. For those of you looking at the PowerPoint, they're listed here, and then I will also go over them one by one. As I mentioned, timesheets are due twice a month, the 16th and the 1st of every month. And in the member manual, there's a calendar that outlines those dates. And also you'll be receiving reminder emails automatically from the OnCore system. So you might notice that today is the 17th, and so today is the AmeriCorps members did their timesheets yesterday, and so today is the day that as site supervisors you will approve them. If you are a returning site supervisor, then you have the same login information as last year. If you are a new site supervisor, your username is your first initial and last name. So for me, Liza Krauser, it's L Krauser. And then your password is password with a capital P and then a 1 at the end. So password 1 with a capital P. And on the slide, there is a link to AmeriCorps. So if we click on that link, it'll come up with the AmeriCorps site. And you'll notice that the link is ak.americorpsreports.com. If you just Google AmeriCorps, it'll take you to a different site that's not related to our program in particular. So it's very important that you use this ak.americorpsreports.com. And again, I've already sent out this PowerPoint, and I'll send it out again so that you have access to this link. So to log in, you want to make sure you're on the 2019-2020 year, which is the default now, and you click Submit. And then there is a series of AmeriCorps logos. The second one is the Rural Cap logo, and that's the one that you will select. And you want to make sure that you click the Site Supervisor link. All right, so then you come to this page where you enter your username and password and push Login. Once you log in, if there's a timesheet to approve, it will be on your main page. So that you'll just click on it, review the hours, and then push Approve. When an AmeriCorps member submits a timesheet, there's also an automatic link that is generated and emailed out to you. So you can also use that as a means to access the timesheet. Sometimes those might go to your junk mail, so if you don't see it in your main email box, then I'd encourage you to check your junk mail. In some situations, there's a lot of, especially in the rural areas, there's challenges with internet or faxes. In that case, just stay in contact with me so that I know what's going on. If I don't have a timesheet by 5 o'clock the day after it's due, and I have not heard from the AmeriCorps member about why it is late, then the AmeriCorps member stipend will be withheld until the next pay period, pending the completion of their timesheets and reflection logs. But as long as you communicate with me, if you're having challenges, then that won't happen. For the timesheet, the AmeriCorps member should round their hours up to the closest half hour, and to review guidelines in their manual with any questions about how to code their hours. As I talked about, if for requests for leave, 1 to 3 days, verbal approval is needed. More than that is written approval. There are some situations, for example, if a member is called to do jury duty, those hours can be counted as service hours. So if anything comes up, just check in with me. All right, now getting into reporting. As a evidence-based program that is federally funded, we show the impact of our program by means of reporting, sign-in sheets, and surveys to document the impact that the AmeriCorps member is having on the youth in their community. In years past, those surveys of the youth include a survey at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the year. Right now, we are in the process of partnering with UAA to evaluate those surveys and to create new ones. And the goal is for these surveys to be evidence-based and appropriate for the communities that they are working with. So we did a focus group at training with the evaluator with an early draft of the youth survey and got a lot of really good feedback. So we'll be working with the AmeriCorps members, with you as the site supervisors, and with the youth to develop that survey that will be culturally appropriate and show impact. And part of working with the university to do this evaluation process is, hold on, I got to sneeze. Before the survey can be implemented, they must go through an internal review board to ensure that the surveys are culturally appropriate, are sensitive, and won't cause more harm than showing impact. There is a history of outside researchers coming into rural Alaska and actually causing harm by the research they're conducting. And so we are, that is not the goal of this program. We are including you as sites, with the communities, with the youth in this process so that it's a tool that can be used to really show impact and to avoid any harm. So to that end, we have some permission slips for parents to participate in programming and also to participate in evaluations. And those forms are on this next slide. As you can see, this top one is giving permission or not giving permission for the child to participate in program activities. And then the bottom part of it is giving permission or not giving permission for them to participate in the evaluation process. So it is not required that the parent give permission for them to be in the evaluation process in order for them to participate in program activities. But it is, we are trying to get as much impact or as much input as possible from as many people as we can and as many kids so that we can create that really valuable tool and get good information. And this is new to this year. So if you do have any questions about how this will work, just give me a call. So now, getting to some exciting news. As I mentioned before, we did just get a grant from the state, And so part of that benefit is that we can offer each program $1,000 for program supplies. So this $1,000 is for sites to use specifically for AmeriCorps programming. So that might be beading supplies, fish trap making supplies, or paying local instructions to teach or youth skills. And you can get creative with that. And so the process of accessing these funds is to email me a list of the needed supplies, and then I will order them and send them out to your site. Or if you would like to use local, what would you, like furs or local supplies, or to pay a local person to teach, the process would be to create an invoice for those items, and then we will pay the supplier or the instructor directly for those services. So that is exciting news this year. And as part of that process, we would really encourage, we're really encouraging sites to send in those consent forms that I had previously mentioned for participating in activities and participating in the evaluation process. So to encourage the return of those forms, since they are so important, the sites will initially have access to $500 of the $1,000 I previously mentioned. And then the remaining money will be unlocked upon the return of the completed consent forms. But it is really important to note that accessing those funds is not dependent on parents giving permission to participate. So even if the consent forms are checked, I do not give my child permission to participate in activities, or I do not give my child permission to participate in the evaluations, that is fine. That is still a completed form. Although we would encourage you to explain the purpose of these forms so we can have as many people participate as possible. Basically, there's no need to pressure parents to give permission to participate in order to access funds. So if you have any questions about that, as always, give me a call or send me an email. All right, we are almost done. Another thing that the AmeriCorps member does is a monthly report, which are due on the first or second Monday of each month, depending on when the timesheets are due. So in the member manual, there's a calendar which outlines the dates for each month when the report is due. You as site supervisors must review the report and sign the form. So this is what that report looks like. There's at the top, there is some categories of information that we are looking for. Some questions about successes for the month, a list of all the activities they hosted, any reflection that the youth did, a story of impact from the month, any tobacco prevention activities, then a place to report any incidences or safety concerns that happened. So you as site supervisors review and sign that, and then either you or the AmeriCorps member can email or fax it to me. And these reports are really important to chart the progress of our program, to communicate with funders and the community about the impact of what they're doing. And also, it's really important for us to communicate with our funders the impact of our program, to justify the funds that are spent, and to be able to continue having this program in the future. So these reports are incredibly important for the continued existence of this resource. So I really encourage you to encourage your AmeriCorps members to complete these forms. Additionally, whenever your AmeriCorps member has an activity, there is a sign-in sheet that is located in their member binder. This is for a sign-in sheet at the activity. Both children and adults fill it out. If you're in a school, sometimes the schools don't like the name and birthday of the child to be written down, so in that case you can do initials and age. But these are due with the monthly report each month to further provide documentation of the activities that are being held. This next slide is about My AmeriCorps. This is where your AmeriCorps member will access their education award. So it's not something that will concern you as a site supervisor, but just know that that is there. Your AmeriCorps members also have access to Rural Cap's human resource portal called MultiPro to be able to get their pay stubs. So again, just refer them to me if they have questions about that. As I mentioned before, I'll be sending out evaluations mid-year for you to fill out and to go over with your AmeriCorps member. And finally, we have ongoing training teleconferences on Thursdays at 10 a.m. And this is an opportunity for us, all of our AmeriCorps members, to connect and to provide ongoing training and problem solving. So that is for the AmeriCorps members to attend every Thursday at 10 a.m. All right. And finally, this last slide is the AmeriCorps pledge. This is a pledge that all AmeriCorps members take at the beginning of their service year that ties together everyone who is serving together. And so we did this oath together on our last day of service. I will get things done for America to make our people safer, smarter, and healthier. I will bring Americans together to strengthen our communities. Faced with apathy, I will take action. Faced with conflict, I will seek common ground. Faced with adversity, I will persevere. I will carry this commitment with me this year and beyond. I am an AmeriCorps member, and I'm going to get things done. All right. Well, that is what I have for you today. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to learn about the AmeriCorps program. It is a lot of information, but I will be here this whole month, throughout the whole 11 months. So if you have any questions, as always, just reach out to me and ask questions. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.